Who were the Californios? The Californios were the Spanish and Mexican people that were here for almost 80 years before it became part of the United States and before the gold rush. Some of the Californios were military and government officials, some of them were merchants, but most of the Californios were ranchers and vaqueros. So our story begins with Christopher Columbus. Now, Christopher Columbus brought the first horses and cows to America, to the island of Hispaniola in the Caribbean. The conquistador, Hernan Cortez, brought the horses and cows from Hispaniola over to the plains of Mexico. So that by the time he conquered Mexico, there was already a lot of horses and cows there. He paid his soldiers by giving them the horses and the cows, and he gave them land. And they started the first ranchos in 1531. The Spanish soldiers became the rancheros, the owners of the ranchos, and they taught the indigenous population of Mexico to be the vaqueros. When the Americans arrived, they learned the art of cattle herding from the Mexicans, and then they also called themselves vaqueros, but they pronounced it vaquero, and vaquero became buckaroo. The buckaroos went to go fight the Civil War. They left their young brothers behind to herd the cattle. When the buckaroos came back from the Civil War, they dropped the name buckaroo, and they've been known as cowboys ever since. Now, 300 years later, the ranchos also came to Alta California, or as we call it today, just California. Another interesting fact about the Californios is that they went to Hawaii and they taught the Hawaiians the art of cattle herding. That's why the word for a cowboy in the Hawaiian language is pañolo. Pañolo comes from the word español or españolo. Now, life on the rancho was a lot of hard work. During the spring, a lot of new calves were born, and it was time for branding. Branding was done as a way of marking so that you would show ownership and know which rancho that calf belonged to. One vaquero would hold the calf down while another vaquero would put the brand on the hip, like this. Another job on the ranchos was the matanza. Matanza means the slaughter. Now, depending on how many ranchos were involved, they would slaughter anywhere between 100 to 1,000 steers. Now, they would slaughter these cows for two main products. One of the products was the cowhide. Now, the cowhide was valuable because you could make all kinds of leather products out of it. It was known as a California banknote and worth about $2. Now, the other important product that came from the steers was the tallow. The fat of cows is known as tallow, and it's the base ingredient for making soaps and candles. Now, this tallow and the hides would be loaded on ox carts, and they would be hauled to the hide houses at La Playa in San Diego. Our first trading partners in California were the people from Massachusetts. They would send clipper ships all the way down the Atlantic coast and all the way back up the Pacific coast to San Diego. The doñas, who were the wives of the dons who owned the ranchos, they would ride to San Diego to go shopping. The clipper ship would send rowboats to shore to pick up the doñas and bring them to the ship. Aboard the ship, there were many compartments. Each compartment had different products. The doñas would spend the whole day shopping on the ships, going from compartment to compartment. At the end of their shopping spree, they would pay with cowhides, and then they would be loaded on rowboats again with the products that they purchased and rowed back to shore. Now, I'd like to refer to these early clipper ships that came into San Diego Harbor to trade as San Diego's first malls, although they were floating malls. Rancho life was a lot of hard work and very tiring. So the people here really looked forward to fiestas. Fiestas were usually held on religious holidays. Festivities included such things as food, music, fandangos or dancing, and the enjoyment of breaking piñatas. However, their favorite activity were the equestrian events, where the rancheros and vaqueros would display and show their horsemanship. Now, the decline of the Californios began during the Mexican-American War, when California was conquered by the United States, and the Treaty of Cahuenga was signed on January the 13th, 1847 by John C. Fremont and Andres Pico. In my opinion, the Californios should always be remembered as some of the greatest horsemen in the world during this time. Thank you for being with us today. Hasta la vista.